I would like to introduce you to Dan Joseph. Dan Joseph is from the American Red Cross. He has been like very, very instrumental on supporting and basically leading the technical working group related to drones or a UAV as we call it as well. Just to let you know that we have put like this new initiative together due to that demand from the national societies. There are several national societies that are already working with drones. And given that, and given the use of those drones, we ask the network if they would be willing to also support other national societies on whether build this capacity or get supported with this capacity during emergency response. So Dan will be leading this session. He's an IM analyst within the American Red Cross, and as I mentioned, he's been supporting us in so many initiatives within the IFRC, including the needs assessment and this drones capacity. Over to you, Dan, and good morning to you.
Hey, thank you, and thank you for that introduction. Yeah, I'd like to start it off today with a quick poll to see what people's familiarity with drones is. If you could answer the Teams poll that hopefully has popped up in your chat, and we'll give a short bit for people to start providing their answers, and we'll see what the group has, what the group knows about drones. See the answers coming in as it's updating. Getting a good number of people. So far, no one who's flown a drone themselves. Oh, there's one. But a good mix of people who've seen a drone either from a distance, flown by a stranger, or one flown by a friend. Yeah, so thanks to everyone for joining today, and we will try and do a little bit of informational part of the session about drones and how they work and how they map and stuff like that, in addition to some of the overviews about using drones in rapid response. So hopefully you'll get something interesting out of today. So depending on your personal experience, drones might be fun toys, they might be interesting tools, they could be an annoying invasion of privacy. Maybe you've been at a park and heard one buzzing overhead, or frightening weapons if you've read some of the news stories about how they've been used in conflict zones. Today, we're talking about drones that you can buy commercially and fly in an open field, not the drones that require a runway and are flown at thousands of feet above the ground by militaries and governments. We decided to put together a drone module for IFRC Rapid Response because humanitarians are interested in using drones. They have a variety of interesting use cases. These results shown on the screen now are from a 2016 report showing that drones can be a useful technology in a variety of different use cases. And since this report was created, the technology has improved and the opportunities for humanitarians have increased beyond those categories shown on the screen. These results are from the wider humanitarian sector, but there are multiple national societies that are using drones and even more that are interested in how they might use drones. We want the Red Cross Red Crescent Network to be able to use drones in disaster response when it's appropriate and when it's helpful, and also to be able to share the skills and knowledge across national societies. For that reason, we now have the option for national societies to request from the catalog of global surge services a drone team. On the ground, the drone team will consist of a trained and credentialed pilot and a safety officer. The safety officer is going to be responsible for things like answering questions from people who walk up when the drone is in flight, keeping the landing area clear, and watching out for hazards like bad weather, flocks of birds, or maybe piloted aircraft that are entering the mission area. The safety officer can be someone from the receiving national society that the pilot trains to perform the necessary support duties. Since it doesn't require piloting the aircraft itself or anything that you can't learn in maybe a couple hours, It doesn't need to be someone that's deployed internationally. For small operations, the pilot will also be the team lead. So a team of technically kind of, I guess, one. If a larger team or if more than one pilot is deployed, then just one of them will be designated as the team lead and will be responsible for coordinating the different flights and engaging with the National Society. For each pilot, there should be 2 quadcopter drone systems. A quadcopter just means 4 propellers, kind of the most common one that you've probably seen available in the shop, or a friend flying. Extra batteries and propellers in case something goes wrong or something needs to be replaced, and the computer equipment for image processing and storage. Requests for this module will go through the Surge system, just like any other rapid response request. There are a couple of national societies with capacity to fill these requests already, and we expect a few more soon. Before a deployment goes ahead, we will need to confirm that it's legal for the drone team to deploy to the country that's requesting the drone team, and that they're allowed to fly. We might need to make sure that their remote pilot certification, depending on which country they might have received it in, is accepted by the National Aviation Authority in the country where the National Society is requesting the drone team. Make sure that there's no special restrictions due to the disaster on the use of drones, that there's no issues with, for example, conflict that would make use of a drone dangerous for the operators or for the organization. The services that are offered by IFRC Drone Team in rapid response may evolve and grow in the near future, but for now, we're focusing on 4 core services that they will be able to provide. The first being media communications. The team will be able to collect aerial images and video for media posts and press releases and things like that. Aerial imagery can be a very broad and comprehensive tool to communicate the impact of certain disasters to a general audience. The drone imagery can have a pretty significant and timely impact with the media and broader public when used as a communication tool immediately post-disaster. We have seen where the aerial images from a drone can really capture the extent and magnitude of a major disaster in ways that it's sometimes hard to see from the ground. The team will also be able to provide situational awareness. So a drone can be used for immediate situational awareness, as well as to monitor evolving situations with limited risk to staff. So the drone team might go along with a roving team to scout safe routes and rapidly observe nearby areas, help them quickly know which way to go in the event of uncertainty while traveling. And the drone team can also map. A large number of drone images can be stitched together with software to create an image usable as a map layer. Mapping of affected areas can provide an important input for assessment and planning, as well as establishing a baseline for recovery programs. There are some limitations, meaning that mapping can cover smaller areas, such as a town, but you'll not be able to map an entire disaster-affected region if a large portion of the country is affected, or several provinces or something like that. And the final core service is site survey. This one's a bit of a cross between the situational awareness and the mapping. And it can be used as an input to optimal planning of base camp facilities, field hospitals, community latrines, distribution sites, water filtration installations, and more. Anything that needs to be set up, you might want to observe the area, get more details about the surroundings, and understand the best locations to set things up. The drone team can provide kind of a rapid initial or an ongoing site surveillance with minimal resources. This could be a quick check of the live video feed immediately after you send the drone up, or a more detailed surveying exercise that includes anything such as a 3D model of the area to get an idea of slope, as well as high and low spots, or that high resolution imagery for creation of a map. And we've got another poll. We did research in 2019 into the use of drones by the Red Cross Red Crescent Network. And does anybody know how many national societies were found at that time in 2019 to have used drones? So we'll leave the poll up for maybe 30 seconds or so, let people get their guesses in, get their answers in. If you've read the report, you might already know the answer. "12 is currently in, 12 is in the lead right now. That's the answer. "16 responses. We'll give a little bit more time for a few more people to answer. Thanks for that. Most people seem to think it's 12, followed by 26. And the answer is 26, though we're pretty sure the number might have grown since. And this number captures all those who have experimented with drones or have had a project with drones and not necessarily at the time had an ongoing capacity to use them. So you might be wondering why, if there are satellites and such, do we need drone imagery? Take a close look at this example of a satellite image. Focus on a particular house or bend in the river. And in just a minute, I will swap the image for one from a drone. Okay. Hopefully you're focusing in on kind of a house or some feature that's identifiable. And I'll swap it in 3, 2, 1. Did you notice the sudden increase in detail? Satellite imagery is usually about 30 to 50 centimeter resolution, but drones can readily collect sub 5 centimeter resolution. Resolution is the ground size of a pixel in the image. So the smaller the number, the more detail you can see. With drone imagery at 5 centimeter resolution, an object that's 5 centimeters across is visible in the image. For satellite imagery, that object has to be 30 or 50 centimeters across before it's the size of a single pixel and will be visible in the image. And that's not considering that if you want to be able to make out details about that object. If clouds are in the way when a satellite passes over, there's not a lot you can do. And some satellites might pass over a particular area only once a day or so. With a drone, you can fly below any clouds, and you can take advantage of breaks in any bad weather, quickly taking off and landing as needed. It's quite easy to recall a drone during a mission, or wait and then launch on a moment's notice. As a child, did you ever play the game where you had to find what's different between two pictures? The image on the right on this slide is newer, and there are several big changes. Satellite imagery can often be old, and not all disasters result in satellite companies collecting and publicly releasing new imagery. Drone imagery can be used to capture all the changes in an area. In addition to talking about the why of drone imagery, we thought it might be interesting to give a short overview of how mapping works. One image rarely captures everything you want to see. When mapping, you program the drone with an app running on the drone's controller or on a smartphone paired to the controller so that the drone flies a very precise path over an area. Up on the slide right now is a screenshot from one of those apps. The red triangle in this case would represent the current location of the drone, and the line going back and forth in a zigzag, the path of the drone. While the drone is flying that path, it'll be taking a lot of pictures, and it will be taking them at a set frequency. To merge the pictures, there needs to be overlap between each picture taken along a pass and side lap between each pass. Features on the ground need to show up in multiple pictures. For our final poll, do you know or can you guess what percentage of overlap usually gives good results when you want to merge the pictures? In on screen, you can see a diagram showing kind of what that overlap and side lap means. The blue icon looks more like a plane and not a drone. but represents the craft flying over the ground. The triangles show kind of the field of view from the camera facing the ground, and then the squares at the bottom represent those images on the ground, with the shaded area, the overlap and side lap between images and between each pass. "15 responses so far. We'll give a little bit more time for people to get their guesses in. We have guesses in all the categories, with the lead right now at 30%. And actually, the correct answer here is D, 70%. Although this can vary a lot depending on what you're mapping and the number and type of distinct features that can be matched across images in the zone of overlap. So what does mapping look like? Here's a map with a bunch of points on it. Each of those points represents the location where a single image was taken by a drone. You can see the different mission areas kind of are visible, and the overlap where the mission area is connected. And then when the images are merged, they create a high resolution, up-to-date visual data for the area. As with all our work, community engagement is a key part of the process so that the drone missions don't inspire mischief like this child with a slingshot, but rather inspires curiosity and trust with the communities as people are hopefully excited about this technology and how it's being used. There are opportunities to grow the use of drones in new ways. Beyond standard cameras, there are other sensors like thermal and multispectral cameras that can be carried by a drone. There are exciting ways to combine drones with other innovations like machine learning and other sources of data for enhanced analysis. And drones carrying cargo might also be feasible and useful in some scenarios. We hope to see additional national societies using this capacity, adding this capacity to their toolkits, and see the use of drones throughout the disaster cycle, not just in response. So hopefully we have some time to answer any questions that people might have. I know there have been some in the chat.
Dan, this is Paco speaking. There is a question there with regard to basically the countries that allow and don't allow drones. And I mean, my reply has been that we are working on that, but the situation is fluid and the legislation is changing like rapidly. I know that in the past there was some initial like intents to do like the mapping, but there is no we don't have like a currently an updated one, isn't it?
Yeah, there's some resources online. Different groups have worked to compile the regulations globally, but it's always something that we'll need to double check and confirm when a deployment is requested or when support is requested to check to make sure we are aware of any changes in the regulations. And also about when it comes to not just the ability to fly, but also the certification that our deployed pilots might need, making sure that their whatever agency or organization certified them, that it's recognized by the aviation authority of the country.
There is one additional question from Mr. Ivanov that says, in terms of terrain elevation, is it possible for the mapping to include elevation as well?
Yes, so actually, even though the camera is taking 2D images, if you fly, as it's flying it, the processing software can triangulate features across different images and build a 3D point cloud from the 2D images. So it is possible to create an elevation model of a given area using the drone imagery without any special equipment other than the camera that comes standard on most drones. And there's some techniques for planning your mission and setting how the drone is taking the pictures to improve the quality of those 3D maps. I see there's a question about drones being used to identify the location of victims.
Two additional questions, and thanks, Dan. So how drones can identify the location of victims? Do we have like any successful story to tell?
I think the German Red Cross has quite a nice drone equipment setup. I'm not sure if they participate directly in search and rescue, but I know they have done support, I think, to kind of fire and fire services, police services type stuff for instance, like an unexploded ordnance in a field, I think like for a fire. I think the Mexican Red Cross maybe has used drones either directly or through a partner for search and rescue activities, but I don't have all the details on that. Drones certainly are useful in search and rescue, and also especially in finding people when they carry a thermal camera. They can more easily identify a person that's in tall grass or partially obscured under other trees or something like that. The thermal camera can help find people that might otherwise be hidden from view.
Good, and thanks, Dan, for that. How about the methodology? What is it with regard to the open source software for processing orthomosaic? We are using an open source, right?
Yeah, so our recommended software is the Open Drone Map set of tools. It's open source and freely available. There are also other options, Pix4D, Drone Deploy, a variety of commercial providers that provide software as a service and will process the imagery for you. But we certainly encourage people to try out Open Drone Map.
Thanks for that, Dan. Additional question, non-stop of question like technical ones. Do you set any scale to determine the area already being impacted while taking aerial shot by drone? This is by Prodip Barmon. Any scale
Yes.
to determine the area already being impacted while taking aerial shot by drones?
Yeah, so if it's a limited disaster like a landslide or maybe a flood for just one town or something like that, once you do the mapping, the image that you process out at the end that combines all the individual photos can be used just like a map. So you can, using a GIS software, count buildings, measure area, things like that, to get a determination of what's been impacted. If the disaster is one that's affected a large part of a country and the drones can only capture smaller areas at a time, you might not be able to image the entire area. So you'll need to either do some sort of estimation. Okay, we've mapped 10% of this town, so we're going to multiply our damage number by 10 or something like that. That would be a really rough one. But you need some sort of methodology to extrapolate out to take what you're able to map and then estimate from that the larger impact to the area, perhaps combining with satellite imagery and things like that to get a sense for it.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan. Two more last questions. Does the Tampere Convention also applies to drones? This is one. And do we have a training to support national societies on drones?
I'm not aware of a relation between the Tampere Convention and drones. I'd have to look into that and see. There is currently no movement training on drones. We can suggest some various online trainings that are available. And depending on your country, there might be different regulations about what the National Aviation Authority would like people to go through before they can fly drones. And sometimes there's differences between if you're flying a drone just as a hobby or if you're flying it for a business. In the US, flying for a nonprofit counts as flying for a business. So even though you're a humanitarian, you still need to go through the full certification process here in the US. So you'll need to look into that country by country. But definitely, I think there is interest from the national societies that have drone capacity, that if there can, is budget available or resources available for engaging directly with others and helping share their knowledge. So definitely something that the drone group, IFRC drone group, can help facilitate, can help you look into if there's interest.
We still have, let's give it like 1 more minute, and then we will be a little bit late. Is there any specification with regard to brand or specific equipment to be used to guide national societies?
I think DJI is one of the major producers of drones. In some countries, there's a bit of contention because it's a Chinese manufacturer. And so some people have national security concerns, but tends to be a very robust, easy to use drone. Increasingly, there's a wide variety of drones in the market, and most of them function fairly well. There's a question, yes, no drone team has been deployed yet as Surge. I think there has been some use of drones either by partners or sometimes if someone, I think occasionally there's been someone from like comms who happens to have a drone and they take some footage for communications purposes. Oh yeah, Paco replied to that not yet.
Thank you so much, Dan. Any final remark with regard to where to get access to more information and with regard to the IFRC Drones group?
Yeah, so if you'd like to join the email list for the IFRC Drones group, my email is up on the screen. Please send me a note and I'll add you to the listserv. In the email that went out to promote this session, there were some links to the YouTube channel where we post past recordings from webinars from the drones group. And I think, Paco, when we send out the recording, we'll also send out a supplement material that answers some of these questions that came up in both sessions, so you can have those documented.
Thank you so much, Dan, and thanks for everyone to be here for this half an hour. See you in the next Surge webinar in 2 weeks.